Sarper and Shekinah from 90-Day Fiancé address divorce speculation by disclosing their future plans. Sarper Gyuvin and Shekinah Garner from 90-Day Fiancé are disclosing if they will participate in 90-Day, the last resort, following indications of a potential divorce. Sarper hails from Istanbul, Turkey, and encountered Shekinah from Los Angeles through a dating application. Although Sarper had previously been married, he had never experienced love. Sarper engaged in sexual relations with almost 2,500 women. However, Shekinah was his inaugural girlfriend. Initially, Sarper exerted control in the relationship. Upon Sarper's arrival in America, the dynamic shifted. Shekinah commenced monitoring Sarper, who subsequently perceived himself as depressed and losing his autonomy. Sarper nearly refrained from marrying Shekinah. They disclosed that they have marital difficulties despite their renowned betting on 90-Day Fiancé. Sarper and Shekinah appeared prepared to terminate their relationship. Sarper and Shekinah appeared to have a favorable conclusion at the tell-all, although their relationship is deteriorating in reality. Sarper and Shekinah conversed with Swoon regarding the developments after their choice to pursue therapy, which they disclosed during the tell-all. Shekinah affirmed that their subsequent objective as a pair would be to pursue therapy. "We have conducted several sessions," Shekinah said. "We undoubtedly require additional resources, but at least we have initiated the process, correct?" Shekinah remarked on Sarper's initial reluctance to pursue therapy, noting that his eventual consent was the most significant development. Shekinah acknowledged the difficulty they faced in locating a competent therapist. She likened it to experiencing numerous first dates until discovering a suitable match. Shekinah indicated that she has discovered a good one and emphasized the necessity of engaging in more frequent conversations with him. Shekinah and Sarper possess robust, analogous personalities that frequently conflict, particularly when one seeks to alter aspects of the partnership. They had previously attempted therapy before to their marriage. Nonetheless, Sarper, perceiving himself as the dominant figure in the partnership, exhibited reluctance. In his culture, treatment is frequently perceived as a manifestation of weakness in men, and preserving a feeling of masculinity has significant importance for them. Nevertheless, Shekinah remained resolute in her efforts to persuade Sarper to abandon his bad boy persona. She effectively shaped his perspective, facilitating his growth and maturation inside the partnership. Nevertheless, her persistent insistence on being the sole individual making all the sacrifices started to yield adverse effects. Sarper withdrew, and his revived apprehension towards commitment resulted in Shekinah experiencing frustration and disappointment. Shekinah perceived that Sarper was not assuming accountability in their relationship. Recent updates indicate that he is now approaching his vocation as a personal trainer and comedian with greater seriousness. He is receptive to couples therapy, demonstrating his genuine concern for Shekinah and his commitment to their marriage as a lasting union. Sarper is inspired by his parents, who have been wed for more than 45 years. Shekinah and Sarper ought to have been included in the forthcoming season of Happily Ever After. However, their decision to pursue therapy indicates that their marriage has experienced few joyful moments since the wedding. Their lives have taken a fascinating turn in contrast to other 90-Day Fiancé couples. The efficacy of the couple's therapy sessions in resolving their issues remains uncertain. Nonetheless, the nocturnal atmosphere in Istanbul was temperate and vibrant with urban activity. Shekinah Garner, recently reconciled with Sarper Gyuvin, felt a sense of cautious optimism. The couple had endured numerous challenges, disapproving friends, cultural conflicts, and Sarper's notorious desire for control, but today, they were attempting to initiate a fresh start. Sarper organized an exclusive supper at a rooftop restaurant with Shekinah's old buddy from Los Angeles, Dan. Despite years of separation, upon discovering that Shekinah was in Turkey, Dan felt compelled to reconnect. Consistently affable, Dan assured that he would maintain a cordial atmosphere. However, friendly was not the outcome. As soon as Dan came, Sarper's vigilance was heightened. He saw Dan's inclination to lean in during conversations with Shekinah, the excessive nature of his compliments, and the prolonged gaze of his eyes. Sarper tightened his jaw, but remained silent. He was endeavoring for Shekinah. "You are even more exquisite in person, Shekinah," Dan remarked while drinking his drink. "Sarper is fortunate. However, should circumstances deteriorate," he smiled, "you possess alternatives." Shekinah chuckled uncomfortably. "Dan, cease." Sarper's gaze intensified. "Pardon?" Dan faced him, maintaining his smile. "Calm down, my friend. I am merely jesting. Shekinah and I have a long-standing relationship. You ought to listen to the narratives from our clubbing era. I am indifferent to your narratives," Sarper interjected icily. "You are no longer in Los Angeles. You are in my city, occupying my table with my girlfriend. Demonstrate respect." Dan grinned and elevated his hands. "Very well, very well." No damage incurred. Reconnecting with an old acquaintance. However, Sarper had ceased to be accommodating. He rose gradually, his gaze fixed on Dan. "Allow me to be unequivocal. Disrespect Shekinah or our connection once more, whether in jest or earnest, and you will exit this rooftop expeditiously." Shekinah positioned herself between them, resting her palm on Sarper's chest. "Cease immediately. Both individuals." This supper was intended to be tranquil. Dan exhibited a nonchalant gesture. "Greetings, it is your acquaintance adopting an assertive demeanor." "I am the alpha," Sarper retorted, "but I refrain from striking individuals during dinner unless absolutely necessary." Shekinah directed a piercing gaze at both of them. "Dan, you are behaving inappropriately. Additionally, Sarper, cease your excessive reactivity. I do not require either of you to transform this into a territorial dispute." Dan chuckled. Identical Shekinah as ever. Establishing the proper hierarchy for men. She then turned to him and remarked, "Perhaps it is time for you to depart." Dan rose and performed a feigned salute. Message acknowledged. "However, should you desire a man who listens more than he expresses aggression, feel free to contact me." Sarper advanced, but Shekinah restrained him. Dan departed with a smirk and a confident gait, vanishing down the staircase. The ensuing hush was palpable. Sarper finally stated, "I informed you. Men of his ilk do not honor boundaries." Shekinah exhaled a sigh. "I informed you that I established the boundaries. Thank you for advocating on my behalf." He gazed at her, a subtle glimmer behind his typical hardened facade. "I simply wish to avoid losing you to someone who engages in manipulation." She grasped his hand. "Therefore, refrain from embodying the game." The night progressed, more subdued than prior, yet a change had occurred. Sarper came to rely on Shekinah's discernment. Shekinah understood that love transcended mere passion. It entailed mutual defense when boundaries were violated. Nonetheless, Istanbul radiated beneath a gentle evening sky. However, within Sarper and Shekinah's flat, the ambience was far from tranquil. A minor disagreement regarding dinner plans escalated into a vehement exchange of words, resulting in emotional devastation for both parties. "You lack respect for me," Shekinah exclaimed, tears brimming in her eyes. "You dictate every aspect, my attire, my conversations, even my posture." Sarper's jaw tightened. "That is unjust, Shekinah. I traveled this far for you. I transformed my entire existence." His voice quivered not from rage, but from a poignant amalgamation of exasperation and sorrow. The cameras recorded each moment of it. This was the most authentic moment they had recorded since the season commenced. Earlier that day, Shekinah had convened with an old acquaintance from the U.S. at a nearby cafe. Sarper disapproved, and upon viewing a photograph of them on Instagram, he utterly lost control. The dispute commenced with allegations and concluded with Sarper preparing a bag. "I am visiting my cousin. I require space," he stated icily, fastening his bags. Shekinah remained immobilized in the doorway, uncertain whether to intervene or permit his go. The conflict extended beyond the photograph and the companion. The situation encompassed the accumulation of cultural conflicts, trust deficiencies, and Sarper's compulsion for dominance juxtaposed with Shekinah's need for autonomy. Later that night, Shekinah experienced an emotional breakdown during a confessional. "I am uncertain if love is sufficient any longer." I abandoned all to be present here, and now I experience profound solitude. Simultaneously, Sarper experienced his time on camera, albeit with a stern countenance. If she cannot adhere to my guidance, this will be ineffective. I did not bring her here to face obstacles at every turn. The episode concluded with an eerie silence. Shekinah nestled on the couch, phone in hand, composing and erasing a message to her sister. Sarper was observed traversing the streets of Istanbul solitary, passing couples, his gaze laden with remorse. A preview for the forthcoming episode depicted Shekinah consulting a local immigration attorney, while Sarper contacted an enigmatic woman in Turkey with whom he had not communicated for several months. Are they truly finished? Or is this merely the calm before the storm? Greetings, esteemed viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Amelia. I hope your day is going well. If you liked the video, please remember to subscribe to the channel.